What's up, guys? I have with me today the amazing Brianne Showman. Now, I came across Brianne because one of my trainers here at my clinic was actually on her podcast called the Highly Functional Podcast. And I listened to that episode. The topics on Brianne's episodes are awesome. They kind of like go through a lot of different stuff, training, business, and they're not just good for PTs, they're also good for coaches and for athletes, which I think is amazing. She is the owner of Get Your Fix Physical Therapy, and she's now adding and performance, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. And she is the author of the book, Own Your Day, Own Your Life, which is all about kind of creating the life that you desire as a physical therapist. So Brianne, welcome to the PhysioMission Podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Can you, I like to start with an origin story. I like to start with this idea of, where is your passion? Where did that come from? What motivates you? And then how has that transitioned into what you do professionally?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually came out of school. I've actually been out of school for 13 years already. Can't believe it.
Okay.
Spent the majority of that time in the normal traditional insurance outpatient world, which I did enjoy. I actually worked at a clinic that did not cause burnout, which was nice.
Okay.
But as I was going through that, I was getting very frustrated that insurance restrictions kept getting me more limited and limited. We were only able to do so much with somebody. Throughout that time, I also got highly involved in the CrossFit world as myself as an athlete. And just
how did you get involved? Did you get involved like personally going in, or did you have a lot of clients that would come in with CrossFit injuries?
Yeah. So initially it was me just being an athlete. Okay. And then while I was there, things would pop up. People ask me questions. And so I started just getting an interest in working more with athletes, started going that direction, and just started realizing how underserved that population is, the athlete population in general, in the sense that a lot of therapists don't know how to really work with athletes really well just because they aren't in that realm. And so I really started transitioning myself to the athlete realm because I feel like I'm really good at working with them. I'm able to break things down and really be able to pick up those minor things that cause a lot of these issues in people.
Right, because you felt it in yourself. It's something that you did. But when you said that you don't think a lot of PTs know how to work with athletes, can you let's qualify that? Because there's a lot of people in a lot of different niches. But I agree that if you don't come from an athletic background, it's hard to know what an athlete thinks and feels in their own body when they do things. So tell me about your experience with other PTs and areas that you think that we need to get better at as a whole to serve the athletic community.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of people I actually end up working with client-wise tend to be ones who have seen other therapists and it just didn't work. And through my conversations, it's like, these are athletes who may have not even surgical, not major injuries. It's just like we have aches and pains and they're doing clamshells and bridges and just all this laying down stuff, or just your basic isometric shoulder exercise, or just these very simple things. And that's not how an athlete functions. That's not going to get someone better if we just do these simple basic things. And so I feel like there's this disconnect between how a person needs to function in daily life and how an athlete needs to function in their activity.
Okay. And so if I were to walk into your clinic, even in the earlier stages of rehab, how are you tweaking those classic exercises to make them more integrated and work for the athlete population? How can therapists think differently about that? Yeah.
So as long as someone's able to, I'm getting them standing and instead of doing a clamshell lying down, I'm getting them standing, put a band around their knees, getting them into a single leg stance position and moving that way. So we're stabilizing and moving. I'm looking at hip hinge from day one to see how they're actually moving. Can they do a hip hinge? What does their spine do in that position? And just
you
really
CrossFitters are the freaking kings and queens of hip hinging, by the way.
What was that?
I said you CrossFitters are the kings and queens of hip hinging.
I would hope so, but unfortunately, there's a lot of people who can do it.
All right, go on. So you get them essentially weight bearing, you get them working multiple joints, more integrated stuff. And then is there a difference in the progression for you as well? Like how you actually work that athlete?
There definitely is. Me being in a gym, I do have the luxury of being able to get them on the rig, get them on a barbell, do a lot more functional movements that some people in an outpatient clinic might not be able to.
Right.
But along with that, I'm doing a video of them. If they are one of my OCR athletes or runners, I'm doing a video of running assessments, seeing what's going on with that. I may take video of them actually doing lifts so we can really break things down and figure out what, especially as that pain's going away, what are they doing that contributed to that injury in the first place?
Right on. So movement analysis for the athlete. Do you guys shoot slow motion video as well?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I do full speed, but then I throw it into an app to slow it down.
Awesome. So you're inside of a box. You're essentially your PT practice is inside of a CrossFit box. What's that been like?
I have a lot of fun with it. It's nice to be, even if they aren't clients, that people can, like, if they have an issue, just come and ask me questions of, this is going on. Is it safe to train? Is it not? Like, what can I do instead? And then if nothing else, it's just me being present there. It creates conversations. And when things do come up, they're more likely to come see me because I know what I'm doing, both as the athlete side and the clinician side.
If I were to close my eyes and see what a actual PT clinic inside of a box looks like, do you have your own room? Do you have just a sort of a table in the middle of, the the hyperextension, like, or the airdynes? Like, where are you positioned in there? And then I really want to get into the concept of, if a physical therapist wants to develop a relationship with a gym and get inside of a CrossFit, what's the first step? How do they do that? So let's talk about just physically, like, what does that space look like?
Yeah, so actually, I'm in two different boxes. One, okay, I do actually have my own office in. The other one, my table's just kind of in a back corner, and I kind of just do my thing back there.
Okay. All right. So both scenarios. And do you find that working in an open space like that inside of a CrossFit with a patient is challenging? Because I know that when I'm working, if there's people around me doing stuff, if I'm working on the table, or if I'm doing sort of motor control stuff where I need them to fully focus, I find that challenging sometimes, but I'm a very distractible person. So how does that work for you?
Honestly, the biggest challenge for me is I don't have a really loud voice. And so if the music gets turned up, trying to give cues or instructions can be difficult.
Yeah. All right. So it's not a perfect situation when you don't have closed doors to actually work inside of. But how did you get into that? So I'm a clinician. Let's say I just graduated. I'm working for, on a 9 to 5, whatever, and I'm in the grind, and I want to get out of the grind, and I like the idea of the gym PT. I know Danny Mata is big in the sort of gym PT. I can't remember who else really pushes the gym PT model, right? And let's say you wanted to go into that. Do you have to be a member of the gym first to get the relationship? What's the process for actually starting that?
You don't necessarily have to be a member, but I highly suggest building that relationship. So whether it's dropping in for classes consistently, doing something to at least make your presence there, give that community something beneficial prior to asking them hey, can I be a PT here? You really have to give your time to those members first, just answering questions, being present, just kind of as you hear conversations come up, hey, do you mind if I give you an idea? And just kind of serve first and kind of work your way in that way. Can
that come across the wrong way? To sometimes, if you get somebody comes in who wants to give, recommendations or advice, and without, do you have to check with the business owner first? How do you start to sort of be seen in the gym as a rehab specialist and someone that knows what they're talking about, rather than just some dope who's trying to give unwanted advice, which unfortunately how advice can sometimes come across.
Yeah. I mean, you definitely have to build those relationships first with the owner and the coaches, make sure that they know, or just build that relationship. Don't go into the gym as I'm just going to be the all-knowing PT person. Go into the gym as I'm the lowly athlete, and that's who I'm going to be right now, and I'm just going to make friends with these athletes.
Right. So if you just come at it sort of from a relationship first standpoint, and then transition into value, and then transition into business.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what does the conversation sound like? So you walk up to the gym owner and you just say, "Hi, can I open up shop here?" Or and how does how do you pay rent within the space? What does that business structure look like? Yeah.
So I pay rent at the one. Technically, I pay rent at both. The one where I have space at, I do pay more rent because I have actual space. It's also the gym I've trained at for 8 years now. So There was a chiropractor there. He left. They asked me if I wanted to move in that space. So it was an easy transition there. The other one, it went under new ownership just over a year ago, last November. And I actually knew the new owner. I talked to him about some shoulder stuff a while back, just in conversations through the CrossFit world. And so I reached out to him. I was like, hey, I said, this is what I'm looking to do. Would you want to meet? So we set up a meeting and just kind of made an agreement. And I started like a month later.
That's awesome. And how's it been working out, like, in terms of like growing the business? One of the things that I always think about as an obstacle for being inside of a gym is that the members of the members, let's say they have 500 members, whatever, once you have worked through all those members and they're all straightened out with their programs or whatever, how do you grow a business like that inside of a gym? Is there enough, are there enough customers coming from the gym? Do you bring customers in from the outside, or have you not even fully, tapped into all the possibilities within the CrossFit?
Yeah, so kind of a little bit of both. I do bring people in from the outside, just because they find me or reach out to me in different ways. I start conversations different ways. So I definitely do have people from the outside. I have people from the gym itself. And then you always, especially if you're a good therapist and you serve them well, you're going to get referrals from them. So whether they send their family member or another friend, you kind of build up that system. The important thing to do, though, especially as a cash-based clinician, is you need to figure out some way to make sure they can, I'd like to say make sure they continue coming, but some sort of, whether it's a maintenance thing, whether it's a programming thing to decrease risk of injuries, like something so you're not just depending on injuries for your income.
Right, something continuity.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone's working with you and they come in with, let's say, an acute shoulder strain, let's say they were lifting, an AC sprain, whatever, and you get them rehab, they're feeling pretty good. How do you transition somebody from the mindset, and where does that transition occur? How early in the process does it occur to say, listen, this is more than just, I'm here to just fix your shoulder, but this is about actually, this is probably why one of the ways you're moving away from, get your fixed PT to get your PT and performance. It's like, what's the next thing, right?
Yeah.
So, but how do you have that conversation? What does that sound like? And how do you transition their mindset into this idea that physical therapy can be more than just let's fix the problem?
Yeah. So I actually used to delay that conversation, and I realized that was to my detriment. So now pretty much from the beginning, it's going to take, say, this many visits to get you out of pain. And then we need to do this many visits in order to just retrain everything, get your body moving better in a better manner. And then kind of go into the education process of, unless it was a traumatic injury, go into that education process of, mechanics, why this most likely was caused in the first place, and how we continue on moving forward, strength programming wise, whatever you want to go with it, for decreasing that injury risk going forward.
Do the sessions that you sell for the performance, is it a package, and is it similar to your physical therapy services, and are they all one big continuous thing, or is it a separate program?
Kind of depends on how they come in. If it's strictly like they have an injury coming in like for PT purposes, then I do like set packages as far as like it's going to kind of, if they pay session to session is one price. If I have them, if they want to pay everything up front, I will give them a discount on that. I do also
and it's
have
the same for PT and performance.
Yes and no, because I do have straight coaching packages as well. So those aren't necessarily coming to me injured. They're just coming to me with, I want to get better at what I'm doing. And that's a year-long commitment of a coaching package that I do.
Oh, interesting. So you're committing them to a whole year of coaching with you.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Where did you decide to actually do a whole year? I've never heard of anybody doing something that long. But I like that because of you're really telling them the truth. It's like, no, this is how long it's going to take. I just love when the scripts come in that go 2 times a week for 4 weeks. I'm like, no, you cannot retrain people's entire movement, paradigms in 4 weeks. That's impossible. It really does take some time to develop people. So where did you come up with the idea of doing year-long commitments in your coaching programs?
With the coaching side of things, most of the athletes I work with, I mean, the racing season is pretty much year round. The OCR season is year round. The CrossFit season is pretty much year round. And so to just train with someone for like 3 months doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because then what's going on the rest of the year, what's going to get re-injured, that sort of thing. And so, and especially because in the beginning, I actually did just kind of like month to month, whenever you're ready to be done. And it was kind of one of those things. It's like they worked with me for like 3 months, and then a couple months later they'd be back. And so it's just made me realize, like, I just need to make this commitment there and just kind of set people in for success up front.
So one of the things that I know that you're passionate about, that you want to talk more about, right? It's what your book is about, is this idea of owning your day and owning your life. So why don't we kind of just let's go from there into that conversation about how therapists can think differently and act differently in order to create businesses that support their lives.
Absolutely. The biggest thing, whether you are working in the insurance world or cash-based world, is just regaining control of your life. It's so easy as an employee to do your 40 hours of treatment time, get stuck with 20 hours of notes at some point during that week, and just really like not take that time to yourself. As a business owner, it's even harder, or it's even easier to do, just because, one, you know what's required to make income. We are so stuck in this employee mindset that we don't take those breaks for ourselves if we don't create that time. And I wrote this book in the beginning as a passion project because, one, I was that person that this book is for, working myself.
What do you mean? What was your state, if you will, when that was going on in your life?
I was working full time as a clinic director and working to build my business.
Okay.
I was working.
How are you doing that?
That's a great question. Looking back, I was sleeping about 4 hours a night. I did.
Okay, that's how.
8 months. Was not the healthiest thing to do. I admit that now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was at the time. Now I know I was running on adrenaline, and that's pretty much all it was. So I got myself out of that. And then I started listening to other colleagues of mine dealing with health issues, stress issues, family issues, whatever, lots of issues because of those same things, just working nonstop. And so I wrote this book initially for that reason of, like, people need to get control of their lives. They need to learn how to create systems and habits and just better lives for themselves all around.
When you say systems and habits, tell me more about that, because I'm like, I get really geeked out when we start talking about systems, all different kinds of systems. That's a training system, a business system. But you said systems for your life, which I think is interesting. I mean, I've heard of productivity systems, but I kind of like the idea that you just brought up of a life system, which I never really thought about. So what do you mean?
Yeah. I think you can have a lot of fun with it when you talk about systems in your life. Just like we have, if you have your policy and procedure manual as an owner, it's like those are the systems that your front desk follows and that everyone follows to get things done. Think about your life as the same way of, creating a morning routine to start structuring your day, create your evening routine so you can slow down and get your body and your brain to shut down so you sleep well. Figure out what works for your schedule to maybe create some downtime in the middle of the day that you can just let your brain shut off, that you can maybe meditate, that you can do things for yourself, creating that time and space in your day for your family, for workouts, for those things that are priorities to you.
Do you write those systems down? Like, when I think about creating something, I think about creating it on paper. But I think most people don't. I certainly don't. Although it's a really good idea to write down your life systems. So write down your morning routine, certainly I have a calendar, and there are some things in the calendar, but all of the tasks that go inside of each of those pieces of my life are not documented anywhere except for in my head. which can become very stressful when it comes time to actually executing them. So how do you recommend that we go about creating our life systems? Is that something that we do on paper?
You can do it on paper, or it might just be something you need to verbalize to people so you can get it in. For example, for me, I have my morning routine. When I get up, I read personal development, I do some meditation, then I get ready and go to the gym. In the evening, I have
Wait, what time do you wake up?
Do you really want to know?
I do.
3 a.m.
No! Stop the madness. What do you mean you wake up at 3 a.m.? What time did you go to bed?
8:30 typically.
9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3. So you're getting about 7 hours. Okay, wait a minute. So you're going to bed at like 8:30. You're waking up at, you said 3.
Yeah.
Okay. It's still pitch black outside when you wake up.
Yes.
And how do you get your ass out of bed? At 3?
Well, I do have an alarm clock, but I am very much a morning person.
Okay.
So for me, like I was never one of those kids who slept in. High school and college, I had 2-a-day practices, so I was used to getting up early pretty much from being young.
So it's drilled into your reticular activating system, or whatever the awakening system is, right? It's drilled into your pineal gland to wake you up at a certain time. Okay, so you get up pretty early, you read. How do you find things that motivate you at this point in time in your life to read?
So I am very much into personal development so I've actually been working with a life coach for 2 years, and a lot of times now, because he knows where I'm at with what we're working on. So typically I'm reaching out to him and just like, hey, any good books you think would be good for me, where I'm at right now. Right. Along with that, I have other colleagues that will suggest books to me at times, or when I listen to podcasts, I'll get book ideas. And so I just kind of have my list of books to pull from when I need new books.
Okay. So you wake up, you read a little bit, then you're off to the gym?
Meditate.
Meditate? How long do you meditate for?
In the morning, 15 minutes.
Okay. Oh, in the morning. So this is twice a day.
My goal typically is midday to get some time just to shut my brain down. So you normally take about 15 to 30 minutes in the middle of the day too.
Very good. Then you're off to the gym. You go to the box, you train. You eat breakfast, or are you a faster?
No, after I train, I have to eat.
Okay. You eat breakfast, then you're off to work, or there's something else in between?
Typically off to work.
Okay. And then what about midday to late day? What systems or strategies do you have in place to manage? Because I know that, when I've been doing this for about 20 years. And when I started as a personal trainer, it's like the same thing. You're seeing clients day in and day out, and it can, not everybody's easy to work with, as you well know. And some people are a little more draining than others. So what do you do to keep your battery fresh throughout the day?
That is part of the reason I do meditate midday. I just kind of need that time to recharge myself. And then I've gotten really good. I've been working with my coach, especially recently, on just regrounding myself. So those times that I feel tension or anxiety or anything like that, when I'm working with someone, just using my breath and regrounding myself and just kind of bringing myself back. Okay.
Awesome. Let us go to the pay for service at a network thing. I just want to hear, as a cash-based provider, your opinion on the state of the union for physical therapy and what it is that, what's wrong. There's something wrong, and what can we do about it?
Wow, that's a big direction to go. Our healthcare system, in my opinion, is not a healthcare system at all. It's a let's just put a Band-Aid on being sick or injured system, which is why I want to get out of it. And initially it was to work with athletes in order to, insurance-based care only gets an athlete so far unless they're a professional level athlete. And so there was this gap that wasn't being met. So ultimately that's why I wanted to go cash-based, so I could get in that gap. as I've gotten out, I've gotten a lot more passionate into why are we getting injured so much? Why can't we create more resilient humans, more resilient athletes in order to actually not let these people get injured all the time and be more preventative rather than a reactive profession? And so that's why I absolutely love what I'm doing as a pay-for-service clinician, because I can do that. I can take them from that injury point to hitting PRs and just get to where they want to be with their goals, rather than just getting them to, okay, we're not injured anymore, go on your merry way.
Right. So do you actually have in order to do that, the initial conversation, I think, is probably the hardest, when someone calls up and says, do you take my insurance, that whole thing. I mean, you see a lot on how do you handle that question. And I interview a lot of people on this podcast who are masters at answering that question. How do you answer that question?
I deflect it.
Okay. And where do you deflect it to?
I immediately, before answering that, it's like, let me get more of your story first. What's going on? Tell me about where you're at now, what you've tried, where you're wanting to get to, and really dive into what their story is, what their goals are, how important those goals are to them, and really have that conversation, just getting to know them.
Right. I think that's probably the core of almost every answer I get when I ask the question is, how do you deal with that? Is you have to go into the story. You have to get that person talking about themselves. And, once you make that personal connection, it's so much easier to say, listen, I think that the best option for you might be to, not go the insurance-based system and get stuck in that rat race. And, do you share with them what'll happen if they do go to an insurance-based clinic where they're treating 4 or 5 people an hour and probably not going to get better?
If they're totally willing to work with me regardless, then I don't. If they do say, you know what, I'm going to use my insurance, I think, instead, then I do educate them. Like I do it in a way that's not really defensive. It's like, why are you thinking that? But just to educate them, like, this is likely what's going to happen. And they can only get you so far. If you're wanting to get back to X, Y, and Z with your training and competing, most likely you're not going to get there. And kind of at that point, I'll leave it like, go see them. If you're not to where you want to be training and racing wise, by the time you're done with them, then we can pick up where they left off.
Awesome. The last question I have for you before we sort of start to wrap up here is this idea of maximizing your freedom as a physical therapist. And what advice do you have for clinicians that are coming out that have this giant, it's like the cloud over their head is that $100,000 in debt, and they all feel like they need to just get working and make money, get experience, which in some ways is true. But how do you create that freedom?
It is a lot of hard work. As working in the insurance world as an employee, it's a lot of hard work, just because that's all you can do. As a business owner, it's just as much hard work, but you're able to do it differently. And I guess the important thing for me is, which I've really learned the past couple of years, is I work my butt off, but I also know the importance of finding time to just have that stillness time, have that meditation time to rest my brain. That I found the more I do that, the more creative I am, the better business ideas I have, the better I can connect with people. And it's something that people don't realize until you really start doing it, that you're so much more productive if you actually give yourself 15, 20, 30 minutes to just sit and be still for a period of time during the day.
I would say that is Buddha level wisdom right there. It's so easy to forget how important that centering time is, I think. And it's awesome to see that you're out there actually doing it, not just talking about it. Because, it goes to show that you can run a cash-based practice, you can do it successfully, and you can find the downtime to sit and get centered and, get off the treadmill for a minute and really be there for yourself. So is there anything that you really want to talk about that we didn't talk about yet that is something that I might not have asked you?
I think the biggest thing with whatever you do, even if you don't get out of the job you're in and, you don't have to get out of the job you're in. You don't have to create a business. Like, that's not absolutely necessary. But I think it's important to find something in what you do that you're passionate about. So even if you're working full time, is there a certain population that you can start marketing to that you absolutely love? Is there a project you can create within the company that you love? For me, when I was working full time, I became the director because, as we talked earlier, I love developing systems and processes and habits and structure. And so that was what I was passionate about at the time, and it allowed me to have that ability. So really just figuring out, like, what are you passionate about and how can you incorporate that into your life the way you are now? And how can you grow your life around that later?
Awesome. Brianne, how do people find you? How do they get a hold of the book?
The book is on Amazon. Just do a search for Own Your Day, Own Your Life.
Yep. We'll put a link in the description as well.
Yeah. Otherwise, you can email me at Brianne@getyourfixpt.com, or I am all over Facebook at Brianne Showman.
Awesome. And you are involved in SSPT, as I know.
I am involved in SSPT.
Greg Todd stuff and OCR, so you're all over the place. And, I'll advise everybody, they have to go listen to the Highly Functional podcast as well, because there's some awesome stuff on there. So thank you so much for being a guest on the show, Brianne. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.